Hello, everyone, and welcome to McGill Cares webcast series supporting family and informal caregivers. I'm Claire Webster, a former caregiver, certified dementia care consultant, and founder of McGill University's dementia education program. I work with a dynamic team of leading healthcare professionals to oversee the program, who include Dr. José Moret from the Division of Geriatric Medicine and Dr. Serge Gauthier, Professor Emeritus, formerly of the McGill University Research Center for Studies in Aging. These webcasts are made possible thanks to the generosity of our donors, and I would like to thank the Zeller Family Foundation for sponsoring today's webcast. Well, I am extremely excited because today we have a very special guest joining us on McGill Cares. I'd like to welcome Teepa Snow. She is the founder of the Positive Approach to Care program. Teepa Snow is an occupational therapist with over 40 years of rich and varied clinical and academic experience. Her company, Positive Approach to Care, provides online and in-person education and products. Teepa has also been a guest lecturer at the McGill School of Physical and Occupational Therapy. She presents extraordinary expertise and humor to audiences all around the world. Teepa, welcome to McGill Cares.
Thanks for having me up in Canada again. It's been forever that we've gotten to be in Canada. It feels like, I know it hadn't been that long, but it sure does feel like it.
Well, this is a really, really exciting day for me because I feel like I've come full circle. How I met Teepa, or became aware of Teepa, was in 2015, I had been doing a tremendous amount of volunteer work in the space of Alzheimer's disease. My mother was still alive at the time. I was probably volunteering about 20 hours a week, mentoring other families and doing some work. And one day my husband said to me, you love what you do. You really should become like some type of dementia consultant, Claire. So I started to say, well, what's a dementia consultant? How do you become a dementia consultant? So I started to do some research and didn't find anything in Canada. And then your name came up and your program came up. And I'm like, oh my God, I want to be her. I want to do that. And so basically that's how it became. I at the time too, you had been coming to Montreal. I was president of the board of Alzheimer's Group. You had come and done a few conferences. And then when I saw that you were offering,
that's when amazing, I remember. That's where I remember you from, Claire. Was you were saying the certification, but I remember you from the Alzheimer's group because I did several programs, and it was rare for them to ask somebody to come back after they'd done a program once.
Yeah,
and that was the surprise because the carers were asking for, "Ooh, that was helpful. Let's do more of this."
Yeah, and it was amazing. I mean, at the time you were, before COVID, I remember there was about close to 300 people coming to see you. And then when I was looking at what around, like, where does somebody become a dementia consultant? Yeah. That's where I saw it. And so I did your program. I came to Washington, D.C. in 2015 and did your program. And I know that there's a lot of social workers right now in Canada who are taking your course, and you are just like a pioneer in this field. So I'm so excited to have you here today.
Thank you. Well, if there's something you want to do and you can't find somebody who's doing it in a way that seems to make sense and is helpful to people, then you got to figure out, what are you going to do about that? I mean, you're just going to let it go, or are you going to do something? And so both you and I, in different ways, have decided, well, we're going to do something about it because it's not okay.
So tell us about your journey. Like, how did you go from being an occupational therapist to one of the biggest experts in dementia care education, like probably in the world?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting, and I always go, oh, I can't be. But then I look around and I guess somehow I sort of am. After 40 plus years, you'd think you get good at something. So maybe that's part of it. But I actually started when I was a teenager. There were a couple things. My grandfather was living with us, and he had vascular dementia. Looking back, we had no idea at the time. He was just getting weird, and he couldn't live alone. And my mom was not a good care partner or caregiver even. And so I ended up doing a more interaction with him and support for him so that he was more comfortable, because she and he, they could not really get along. So I learned some strategies that helped with him. But then I also was working with kids with significant developmental disabilities due to the deinstitutionalization that was going on at the time. And so I was doing work with kids with different brains. So what we would call now, they're, differently abled or disabled, but at the time, I mean, there were lots of negative words for kids who had problems, but we were talking autism, Down, we were talking people who had problems with cerebral palsy, sort of a mixed bag. And so I got real curious, and I was either going to go into some kind of medical profession or teaching. And so I ended up going to Duke undergraduate and got a degree in zoology, which doesn't prepare you to really do anything functional. So after a couple of years of volunteering in an adult day program in the basement of a church that served older people, older kids, 20, 30-year-olds who had developmental disabilities and had aged out of one program, and it served people living with dementia. And so I got my first sort of exposure to this, and it was a combo program, and it was not what you'd call creative or interesting. And so I got really curious about things. And then I got an opportunity to go to UNC's master's program in occupational therapy. The very first year it opened. And so I did that. And after that, I did several different positions around learning about, I worked with older adults, and I worked with people who had strokes, and I worked with people who had head injuries. So I got a more experience there. Then I started teaching. I worked for the program on aging, and I got to work in an interdisciplinary team. And what was cool about us is we wanted to learn each other's disciplines. We didn't want to stay in our own lane. We wanted to do what's called now transdisciplinary work. Mm-hmm. We really wanted to learn, so what do you bring? What are you special at? What am I special at? What are the family members special at? And where do they have problems that they're not so special at stuff? And what about the people we're serving? What are they still good at? What are they not? So we started building, and we did teaching nursing home. We did a bunch of stuff. We trained residents and interns and medical students and nursing students and OT students and PT students. And we did that. And then I've done a bunch of different stuff, but I got more and more curious about brain changes, head injuries, strokes. But then dementia became really something that people would throw their hands up and say, there's nothing you can do. And it's like, egg me on. So I got really invested in understanding what people found challenging and difficult about it, and where I found the problem was we're trying to do this the wrong way. We're blaming them for having the brain changes they have. We're not using what they still have and still can do. And so we're basically setting ourselves and them up to fail. And it's just what the brain can do. Let's quit blaming a brain for what it can do and what it can't do, and let's start figuring this out. And that's how I got, I think, both interested, but also involved in helping other people look at things differently.
So what makes you so unique as well is when you teach, you embody the person who has dementia. So can you talk a bit about how your theater background fit into your life path? Because it's truly amazing.
Yeah. So from like a young kid time, my mom had been involved in community theater, mostly backstage, but she would take us along, and we would always have jobs and things. And so then when we would put on plays, and then we would get positions, I usually I was Cinderella in the Ashes. I didn't get to be Cinderella when she got to go to the play. It was just sort of like we'd do the disappearing thing where the other young woman would pop out and be all pretty. And then I got to play character actors. When I was in college, I would do some, and I would work backstage a lot too. So what was cool about it is you get this ability to sort of go, I never said that. You shut up. You just don't. And then you can just drop right back out of it, because it's like, okay, it's important for somebody to see and hear and feel what you're trying to show them. Otherwise, they don't believe the story. And so it's helping people be able to take in data from me, because my brain is not really in that moment in distress. I'm showing you a very distressed brain, but because I can come back out of it, I can say, okay, so what did you see my hands doing? And the person goes, I don't know. And it's like, oh, you were leaning into me. And it's like, yeah, wonder what that was about. And I get you to think about what you just experienced, but because I can back it off, your brain now relaxes enough to think rather than just react. And so, That's what
we
I
have
think.
we have two great clips to show the audience. One is about a woman that wants to go home and how her daughter is reacting. And the other clip that we're also going to show is a woman that is suffering from paranoia and delusion. So we're showing how the caregiver, how they would have normally reacted, but then the right way to do it. So we're going to run
So option one, option two. So yeah, you can see sort of what happens when you don't actually understand how and what's going on, and what you can do differently when you start to go, okay.
Mom, you need to put a coat on. It's too cold out here.
I'm
Come
fine.
back inside.
No, I'm not
I'm
going
just
to
gonna
do.
get
You
your
are
coat.
not the boss of me.
It's
Just
too
quit
cold.
bossing me
I don't
around.
want you to get sick.
I'm fine.
You need
I'll
a
walk
coat.
wherever I want.
And we're gonna put it on.
I'm not putting it on.
Yeah.
You're crap. No,
no.
I'm not wearing that. Don't you start this. Don't do it.
Mom, I don't want you to get sick.
Shut up.
Mom,
What?
it's cold out here.
I'm fine.
You're not feeling chilly?
No, I'm fine.
Wow. All right. 1 second. Look.
Where? Whew.
Look. This one's. Yep. You get that?
Put yours on.
All right. You're cold. All right. Here you go.
I've got it. Just leave it alone. Think you're the boss of everything.
Super bossy, huh?
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Zip up.
Yes,
You'll
ma'am.
be cold.
All right. You get
Bye.
yours.
No. Don't tell me what to do.
All right.
Answer me. Answer.
What are you doing?
Well, there's little boys in here. You hear them. Here, they're crying. You hear them? Hear the little boys? They're down in there.
I don't hear anything.
No, I can
there's no
hear
one.
'em.
No,
I can
that's
hear
a
'em.
vent. No one could fit in there.
There's little boys down
No,
underneath
that's
in
the
there.
house. That's under
No,
the house.
that's not under the house.
Mom,
There's little boys
this
in
is-
there.
that's an-
There's little boys, and I need to call 911.
Don't call the police. They can't come back
Well,
again.
what are you going to do then? Because they're stuck in
I'm not doing any. Look, there's nothing. Look again.
I can't see them, but I hear them. I hear the little
There's
boys.
no one in
they
there.
are little boys down there. I know
Oh
that.
my God.
What? It's okay. I'll get help. I'm gonna get you some help. Don't cry. It's okay, Mom.
Hey.
Look, sweetheart. There's
What you
little
doing?
boys Cut down in there.
Oh,
You hear them crying. They need help. They're stuck.
you're thinking there's little boys in
You
there.
got to get this off so they can.
Oh
get out.
wow, that sounds
Yeah,
worrying.
Yeah, because listen to them. They're. I think they're stuck. I don't know who.
Hey, Teepa.
Yeah.
I can't hear them, but
Yeah. Well, they're here. Can't you hear it? I hear them crying. They're crying.
yeah, and you're worried about them.
Yes, and we need to try to get them out, or
Okay.
call the emergency people or something.
Hey, Teepa.
Yeah.
Let's if it'll help, let's
Yeah.
try a screwdriver.
Yeah. That's.
See if we can get
lift
it
that
open.
up, and then see if we can get them.
Then we can look a little
Yeah,
closer.
come on, help me out. Where's the screwdriver?
All right. It's right in that drawer.
Okay.
All right.
So when someone has auditory or visual hallucinations, or even tactile hallucinations, and they're distressing, it's important to acknowledge the level of distress the person is experiencing, and acknowledge what they're thinking, what they're seeing, what they're hearing. Acknowledge it, but that doesn't mean you hear it. So we don't say, I hear it too, but what we do say, if you're really concerned, I'm not hearing what you're hearing, but I get it that you're hearing it. Let's see what we can do about it. Because we are willing to do something about it. It's just what we do about it has got to be based on what the person thinks might be helpful or feels like might be helpful, or we got to come up with something else.
So Teepa, talk to us about what are the primary objectives of your positive approach to care program?
Regardless of your relationship, in this moment, you got to build a relationship that's a decent relationship, or the person living with dementia isn't necessarily going to allow you into their home, into their life, into their intimate space, into their care routine. So it's about building relationship while you're figuring out what their abilities and maybe their inabilities are. Where are they? What can't they do? But also seeking their permission prior to acting, but in a way that's going to work, not in, are you ready to take a shower? Because the answer will be no. And then you're going to argue about it rather than, ooh, hey, Claire, you know what? It looks like you have something like right along your jawline. I can't like feel there and see if you feel anything. Do you feel anything along your jawline? Like right up here. Now, notice Claire's being really hesitant, but as I do this, she reaches up and touches herself. Now, I am not touching her. I'm saying, it doesn't feel like anything's there? Huh. Tell you what, let's go look in the mirror and see if we can see anything, because tell you what, come with me. And what I'm doing is I'm breaking this larger task down into baby steps for myself so I can figure out, how do I get this started? What can I do that Claire gives me permission to do? So she gave me permission to interact with her. She started copying my motions. And then when I did this, she said, yes, I will go with you. I didn't do any physical connection yet because she still hasn't given me that permission. But she is moving with me to a place where we could possibly do the thing we want to do, which is the shower. But I'm not going to bring it up right now because she'll start potentially going, no, that's a private, intimate task. I'm not doing that with you. And so I don't know where this will go. I have to be willing to realize I do not know what the outcome is going to be. I know what I'd like. I have an agenda, but I got to take that and put it away and see what I can get Claire to agree to as we're going, that it's not a yes, no. It's a process that we go through.
One of the most pertinent learnings that I took away, I mean, I took away so much from you, but, as the disease progresses and the person loses their ability to communicate, when they start demonstrating some challenging behaviors, and they can't verbally say what's wrong with them, you would say, be a detective and not a judge. Can you expand on that?
Yeah. So if you're observing something and you're going, oh, geez, what is she doing? Then you should, instead of going, oh, geez, what is she doing, with that voice that sounds like she's doing something wrong or weird or inexplicable, what I do is, wow, that was unexpected. Okay, so what sensory systems is she using? Is she using her eyes? Is she using her fingertips? Is she using her mouth? Is she using her whole body? I mean, what do you think she might be trying to get out of that thing that she's doing? What's her emotional state? Does she seem like she's angry, sad, scared, feeling trapped or abandoned? Do we think she's looking for purpose? I'm looking at a physical level, of a mental health level. I'm looking at an emotional level because I'm trying to figure out, okay, what's happening for her, so that when I enter the system and there's a matching rather than a conflict, because she's being challenged by the environment is what I'm noticing. Wow, something is really not what I've anticipated. So, all right. Ooh, and one of the things I'll often do is, ooh, Claire, because frequently my ooh, Claire causes the part of your brain known as the reticular activating system to go, ooh, something important is going on. And it's an interesting thing. It's not a scary thing, but it's something that, ooh, they use my first name. Ooh, that means they know me and they think I'm somebody who should be involved. And so it's called an interjection rather than an interruption. Because I'm not actually trying to stop you from doing what you're doing. I'm seeing whether or not I can shift you over to see if we can figure out something different to do, because what's going on seems annoying, risky, dangerous. But telling you that if you think you're doing something that makes sense, yeah, all I'm going to end up with is an argument. So
I want to talk a bit about caregivers now, because what set me on my course, or I call myself a caregiver crusader, is basically, when my mother was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease in 2016, the words that I received, or the words that we received from the neurologist, were "good luck, Mrs. Webster." I mean, that was the prescription of care. And, I've worked with hundreds and hundreds of families, and, when they reach out to me and, I say to them, well, what type of information did you get? It's like, basically good luck, see you in 6 months. You have been doing this work for a long time. I mean, have you seen similar, like with the families? Is that what's happening in the US as well?
It happens in the US, yeah. And the other one is here, I'm going to give her a prescription. This may or may not make a difference, but it's basically all we can do. There's nothing you can do. Oh, the one other typically thing, she really needs to get her affairs in order. And it's like, what? That idea, or that blah, blah, blah. She's got dementia. I don't know if it's Alzheimer's. It isn't really worth checking it out any further because frankly, there's nothing we can do with any of them, Yeah. So, it really doesn't matter if it whacks like a duck, cracks like a duck, it's a duck, you can only need to come back to see me if you're having issues. Actually, probably you want to go back to your primary care provider. Don't need to see the specialist anymore. I mean, it's devastating.
Could you imagine receiving a diagnosis for cancer or heart disease or something and not being given any type of plan, any type of something, right? Directions, how to take care. And I can't believe this is still going on. We wrote, the McGill team is responsible for writing the World Alzheimer's Report, the 2021 and 2022 editions. We did a world survey, and one of the biggest results is that that people weren't provided any information and education upon receiving a diagnosis. I mean, how is that possible?
At this time in this day and age, you just go, seriously? Nobody thinks that this is an unacceptable medical practice to identify a condition and not to have a game plan and not to help a family or an individual if they're on their own look around and go, imagine without even a family, imagine being on your own, having something happening, you recognize something's not right with me. And then they tell you, well, you've got, some kind of dementia. It's not going to go well. You probably need to get your affairs in order. And that's what you get. And that has, when is this going to stop? What I really love about what you're doing and what we're trying to do throughout is we've got to prepare medical providers in whatever role they serve to quit seeing dementia as a black, scary box and start realizing it's a condition similar in many ways to diabetes in that there are things we can do. We're never going to get rid of the diabetes. We're not going to get rid of it. It's not like we're going to cure it right now. I don't have that skill. Nobody does. But what we can do is help people live better lives by putting some things in place that make a difference for people. And one of those is understanding what's happening. Because if you don't understand there's a chemical component and a structural component, it will make it, you don't know what to do because when there's the chemical, it comes and it goes. So your brain goes, well, she did it fine this morning. She's just not trying. And it's like, that's not true. That's the chemical part. Over time, that change, well, then that's the structural part that we got to deal with. But, we got to have
I think one of the ways to change the healthcare system, and I'm really fortunate to be working with McGill University, is what we've come to realize is, oftentimes the medical students learn about the illness, but they're not necessarily being taught about post-diagnostic care. And so that's where we've really been able to now embed the whole dementia education, the post-diagnostic journey into the curriculum. And so, I wish that the universities around the world would just take our template and do the same thing. I agree.
Yes, let's do that because you don't need to reinvent the wheel, guys. No. What we need to start doing is making this available to people so that more families aren't saying, I wish I'd known that when I was trying to help. Because boy, did that not go well for us.
So what have you seen in terms of how the pandemic, how has it impacted caregivers? In terms of isolation, or what have you seen out there?
Wow. So what we're seeing is caregiver stress is now at an all-time high. Caregivers living with actually diagnosable anxiety disorders are all-time high. Depression is off the charts, as is sleep disturbance or use of medication, including alcohol, to try to manage levels of distress to a place where function is actually impaired and wellness is being impacted. Weight gain and weight loss, that's not a healthy weight gain or loss. A lot of taking in of comfort foods that is resulting in increased risk of our carers of diabetes, hypertension, their own health starting to deteriorate. We are seeing a lot of sense of, I can't keep doing this. More incidents that are just starting to be uncovered of neglect, abuse of self, or of the person you're trying to support, because you're exhausted and you don't know what to do and you're not getting a lot of support. There's exceptions, but that unfortunately is becoming all too often. Or people who are isolated from their person, they can't get to them in a residential program, and the guilt and the harm that causes, that sense of anxiety and distrust and feeling like I should do something, but I can't because they won't let me in, that kind of stuff, which is really scary for people.
I think what you mentioned is so important, those coping mechanisms that people are using, whether it be alcohol or food or drugs. I mean, when I was on my journey of caregiving, wine was my best friend. And
you just
don't
want a break. You want the pain to stop. Right? You want to get numb for a little bit. You
want to get numb, but you don't realize how easily it could just become a dependence. You think, those 2 glasses become 4, this becomes more. It's, and then, I remember when my mom passed away in 2016, I had all these like coping mechanisms that had become bad habits. And, you think, when the person passes away, they're going to go away, but it doesn't, right? No. You have to unlearn all of those bad habits, right?
Yeah. And if you don't learn coping strategies that are more effective and that give you a sense of, I'm complete, I'm empowered, I feel confident. It's like, I have a place to go if I have a question. If this isn't working, I can find what I need to try something different. That's really what I think. The pandemic has provided some new options. I think what we're doing now, we would probably never have bothered doing because we could go places and do things. On the downside, we have lots of people who don't know how to access this stuff. And unless we bring them into the fold, and they don't have the funds, the technology, the skill to pull up a tablet and pull this up and be able to make use of it. There is something about it being with human beings that is different than being on screen with human beings, but there is value in being on screen with human beings.
Well, that's what my next question actually is, how has this impacted your business and what you're doing? Because you were, your schedule, you were traveling all over the US. I know that you were coming to Canada too. Like, how has it impacted? How?
Yeah. So in March, when all this started, March of 2020, we went from, 95% of what we did was in-person certifications, trainings, speaking gigs, traveling and doing things with people in buildings, in groups. We were really an in-person company. With some virtual stuff in place. And we did some virtual stuff. It's not like we didn't do any, but it was pretty minimal compared to what we were doing. And within a week, we had to reverse everything. And we were we were actually 100% virtual for a good while. But what I've done personally is there was an adult day health here in the town that I live near, and it had shut down with the pandemic. So after a year and a half, we came in and said, well, you know what? I'm more here and it doesn't look like this thing is going away anytime soon. What we got to do is set up a model where we can show people how to do this stuff. We could show it to them virtually, but we can live it for real. And if people are well and able, they could come and spend some time here and learn from what we're doing and be able to actually experience it with people living with dementia and their families and staff. And so we started working to open the adult day health, and we have reopened the adult day health program here in Orange County. And it is Soltis Place, and we have teachers people who are living with dementia who teach with us. And so often they come on webinars with us and we do videos, and they're part of our TikTok family. You'll see a lot of our folks in the TikTok scenes because they and their families believe that what they're living is something we're sharing, because if we don't figure this out, nothing gets better. So this is our live stuff, and I'm doing a few live events around and about, but mostly we're doing a lot online. Facebook every day, TikTok, who would have thought? We're doing all kinds of things that we would never have done. But it doesn't mean we don't want to go back to in-person. We will. But my world has definitely shifted to providing something local that can be viewed internationally, which is kind of cool because we can do stuff with Australia. We can do stuff with China. We can do stuff with Singapore. We can do things around the world, UK, Europe. We can do those things, Malaysia, because we have the internet, which we could never have done. So
and I love the accessibility, like you said. I mean, yes, there are some challenges for people who are afraid of technology or don't necessarily have access to laptops and stuff. But I feel like, especially among the older population, when we were doing workshops, we'd have about 25 people come, and then weather dependent, they would, either come or not be able to come. But now, I mean, we're able to educate people, like you said, all over the world. Yes. And I think there's also something about being on Zoom. They're in the comfort and privacy of their own space. There's still a lot of stigma that is attached to dementia, where people, even coming to the workshop in a classroom, they were afraid to be seen. They didn't want anybody to know that a loved one had dementia, which was very, very unfortunate. But there is that stigma. But to be able to learn and become educated in the comfort of your own home really says something.
And it's interesting because when we do this and we have multiple people on, we're all in the front row, which is a very different phenomenon. I mean, Stuart, cool. Y'all can see Stuart's in the back row, but that the rest of us, so you can maintain yourself. Yeah. You don't have to be visible. You can be visible. Often in our trainings, we'll encourage people, come on, be one of our panelists because you'll get an experience. But if you want to, just turn off your screen, turn off your sound. So it can be more of a passive event as you're just getting started, but it can also be a really active event. And it allows us to see into the lives, and people can try some things and we can give them some feedback.
So Teepa, now as we approach the end, first of all, tell us, how does one become a positive approach to care consultant? What are the certifications you offer? And tell us about all the amazing resources that you have and how people can access them.
Being a consultant is one of 5. We just started and we'll be starting a new one come June. We have 5 certifications that we have these days. We have trainer, which is who introduces the new idea, taking people from unaware to aware to knowledgeable and introducing some skills. Then we have coaches. And so the coaches help people practice the skills. So if I say to you, listen, I want to go home, you learn that the response that is most effective is, oh, you're wanting to go home versus, well, you are home, or, you can't go home, or whatever it is. So the coach works on your ability to get skillful at that. And then we have the consultant who takes a situation, investigates what's going on with all the people involved, and uses puzzle pieces to sort of put the puzzle together.
That's what I do. Yes.
Yeah, that's your job. And then to go, oh, I think we need some training. Oh, I think some coaching is in order. Oh, I think we might do some environmental modification here with some support. You know what? I'm wondering if it's how much time you're spending together. Let's look at some options. So it helps people come up with strategies for solutions that they help design, so there's a better chance it's going to work. And then we have engagement leaders, because frankly, if we don't have things for people to do to fill their day, their night, they create things, which is where a lot of challenges happen, because they're waiting for somebody, or they don't know what to do, so they do something, or we don't know what to do, so we do something, and it creates a challenge. So engagement leaders help everybody get more in tune and come together and know when to be apart and what kind of support each person needs to fill a day with a variety of activities, not just passive, but active ones, and then restful ones, and then purposeful ones, and joyful ones. And then the new one that we're adding in is a teacher. So the teacher does a combo of coaching and training for basic core knowledge and skills, so that we're getting more champions, because we have champions, who are people who are skillful enough that they can be present and it makes a difference in people's lives. And we've got books, we've got videos, we got online stuff. We have tools that people can use, like resource cards. We have webinars. We have, you name it. It seems like we've put it together because we really believe in the power of meeting learners where they are. And whatever kind of learner they are, that's what we got to figure out how to support, because they are who they are. And our job is to help them.
If 25 years ago, somebody would have said to me, Claire, one day you're going to become a dementia care consultant, I would have never imagined. And, I think that, it was such a difficult and challenging road that I had without having any of the tools. And I've said this many times, but really the gift of my mother's illness is my ability now to share everything that I've learned and give back. And, I feel like I had really on the ground, roll up your sleeves training, but what I've learned from you has really, really enhanced and complemented everything. And I'm so incredibly grateful to what you have done, for people and the education that you've provided. And really, you're a real gift, Teepa. Really.
Well, but so are you, Claire. And that's what this is all about. We call it paying forward, but what it really is about is making a world where if I ever develop dementia, I sure hope I have someone around who knows what they're doing, not someone, and everybody better hope that we find that person, because I'll tell you what, I'm going to be a real challenge because I'll know just enough to be dangerous.
Well, Teepa, thank you so much for being my guest on McGill Cares. Really, thank you so much.
Thanks for what you're doing for the world and not just for McGill. Though I love that, you're helping McGill people do things. I also love that you're reaching out beyond on Montreal, beyond, Ontario, beyond everywhere, because that's where dementia is. It's everywhere.
Thank you, Teepa.
Thank you, Claire.
Thank you. So this webcast is an initiative of the McGill Dementia Education Program, which is funded by private donations. Once again, I would like to thank the Zeller Family Foundation for sponsoring today's webcast. If you would like to make a contribution to our program or for more information, please visit us at mcgill.ca/dementia. If you'd like to join our mailing list to be notified about upcoming episodes of McGill Cares or other important programs and resources, please email us at dementia@mcgill.ca. Thank you for watching.